In the previous class, we have seen how can we find out the solution for a 2 degree of freedom system which is excited by a force system which is harmonic in nature, and where F1 and F2, that is force acting on mass number 1 as well as mass number 2, both of them are synchronous and both of them are harmonic with the same circular frequency omega. So if it is so, then in that case how can we arrive at the solution x1 x2 that we already have seen. Now in the today's class, what we are going to do is we are going to have a look at the same problem but in a slightly different perspective. Okay, so before we go for that, I'll just invoke a few things that we already have discussed about. Okay, so this is the system that I am referring to, which is a 2 degree of freedom system that we already have discussed at length. We have found out free vibration solution for this. Okay, we have considered that mass of block number 1 as well as block number 2 is identical, and which is equal to m, and stiffnesses of all these 3 springs are also identical. So the identical springs are sitting over there. So in that case, we have seen that when there is no any externally applied force, then a system is like this. Okay, we can write down equation of motion of that system in this fashion. Okay, where the first one is mass matrix, this is acceleration vector, and then you have stiffness matrix over here, and to that stiffness matrix displacement vector is getting multiplied by, and when there is no any forcing acting onto it, then we write down 0 0 over here, and we are giving certain initial conditions which are displacements, initial displacements at time t equal to 0, which are specified, and we also have specified initial velocities, that is x1 dot and x2 dot, okay, at time t equal to 0. Okay, so this was the problem at hand. We have solved this problem. Okay, and we have seen that the solution comes out to be x1 and x2 in this case when free vibration problem was considered. In that case, we assumed that x1 and x2 both are synchronous and harmonic. Then we found out that this is how the solution can be written. Right, so this was the first part, and then the second part, C2 times, this is a second mode shape. So you have two mode shapes appearing in this solution. This is the first mode shape, this is the second mode shape, and what you are going to do is in order to get this solution, you kind of superpose these modes, and that superposition is having this much amount of contribution from each forcing. Okay, so you can write down this, whatever that I have just now written in this form. X1 x2, as we found out, was equal to n1, which was function of time, times mode number 1 plus n this n or eta, whatever you call it, eta 2t times this mode number 2. Okay, this is function of time, which is equal to c1 cosine of omega n1 t minus phi 1, and this one which came out to be equal to c2 cosine of omega n2 times t minus phi 2. Right, so this is first part which is coming over here, which is this eta 1, and this is the contribution of second mode, which is eta 2. So what is happening is that as time progresses, contribution of mode number 1 and mode number 2, that is getting changed, and that is determining what is going to be this vector x1 and x2. Okay, so this is called as superposition of modes. So what we have done is we have superposed two modes that we have obtained. This is the first mode number 1 and this is mode number 2, and by superposing these two modes, we are obtaining the solution, the expected solution, which is that x1, this displacement vector x1 x2. So that displacement vector is written as combination of linear combination of two modes that we have obtained, as the solution of free vibration. So what we are going to do is that we are going to assume that this modal superposition holds even when there is force acting. So in that case as well, what we are going to do is that we are going to assume that x1 x2, okay, which will be the displacement solution when there is forcing acting onto it, okay, that also consists of, that can also be written as superposition of these two modes. Okay, first mode, which is 1 1, and the second mode, which is 1 minus 1, and contribution of second mode will be n to t or eta to t. Okay, this is the contribution of first mode, this is the contribution of second mode. Okay, so this is the approximation that we are making, and or more than approximation, it's not approximation, I would say that this is the assumption. In our with this assumption, we are going to move ahead and we are going to find out what are these functions eta 1 and eta 2t. Can we at all find out these functions eta 1 and eta 2t? And these two functions will come out, will depend on what is going to be the forcing acting onto it. Okay, so this is determined, right? Mode shapes we already have determined. Now what we have to do is we just have to find out appropriate combination of these mode shapes at each time. Okay, so this combination coefficient, okay, that varies with time, and that variation is something that we are going to obtain now as part of the solution method. Okay, so the first thing that we'll be doing is we'll be solving free vibration problem. Okay, then we'll be finding out mode shapes and natural frequencies. Okay, now these mode shapes that we are going to use to construct the solution. Okay, x is considered to be summation of eta times whatever mode shapes that we have. Okay, this u is representing mode shape. Okay, so eta I times ui, where eta I is the contribution of this particular ith mode shape in determining this displacement vector, right? And this contribution is function of time, and that is something that we are going to determine because we already have determined these mode shapes. So we don't have to determine mode shapes now, but we'll be determining their how much contribution these mode shapes are going to give in determining what is going to be the displacement vector. Okay, so with this assumption, let's try to see whether we can solve that problem. Okay, so this is also called as modal expansion theorem or modal superposition, in which the displacement vector is assumed to be formed of these mode shapes. Okay, and these contributions, they are going to change with time, and we are going to find out these contribution coefficients, and it is applicable to any n number of degrees of freedom system. So whatever that we have written just now for 2 degree of freedom system, the typical 2 degree of freedom system that we are considering, it is equally valid for any other 2 degree of freedom system as well as for any n degree of freedom system. Okay, so let's try to see how we can proceed with the solution. Okay, now I'll be writing down this in a slightly different fashion. Okay, let me write down this as, or maybe I'll invoke that after some time. Okay, so let me try to see if I want to find out this thing, that displacement, this is the displacement vector. If I am interested in knowing what is going to be the acceleration vector, then how can I find out the acceleration vector? Now acceleration vector is second time derivative of this displacement vector. Now this is something, this mode shape is something which is not going to change with time, but this eta 1 is function of time, right? So if you are differentiating this side with respect to time, then what is going to happen is that eta 1 will be differentiated twice with respect to time, and this mode shape is going to remain as is, right? Similarly, eta 2 will be differentiated with respect to time twice, but the second mode shape is going to remain as is. Okay, it's not going to change. Okay, so time derivatives are going to come over here and sit over here. Okay, this has got nothing to do, these mode shapes have got nothing to do with time differentiation, right? So time differentiation you have accommodated over here in these contribution coefficients. Okay, or these etas. Okay, so now what I'll be doing is I'll be writing down these two equations, the displacement equation and acceleration equation, whatever I've written, in a slightly different fashion. Let me write down displacement equation first, which is this one, okay, this equation that I have written. Okay, so let me write down that in a slightly different fashion. What I'll do is I'll arrange these mode shapes in columns. Okay, so first column represents first mode shape, which is 1 1. Second column represents second mode shape, which is 1 minus 1. And to this vector, okay, to this matrix, sorry, not vector but a matrix, this is a matrix which is formed by all mode shapes. Okay, so what you are going to do is, in order to form this matrix, you are going to arrange all mode shapes in columns. Okay, so this is mode shape number 1, mode shape number 2. Okay, so arrange these two mode shapes in column. This gives you this matrix, which is called as a mode shape matrix. Okay, to that I am multiplying by this vector, which is n1 n2. Okay, so this is matrix form of the same equation that you have written over here. Okay, so these two equations are identical. So whatever you have written over here, okay, it is the same thing which is written over here. Okay, I'll write down that once again in a slightly neat fashion. So x1 x2 becomes now 1 1 1 minus 1 times eta 1 eta 2. Okay, which is nothing but this is displacement vector. Okay, I'll be calling this matrix as a mode shape matrix, and this is a vector of contribution coefficients of each of the mode shape that is coming and sitting over here in U. Okay, so U is what? U is a mode shape matrix which has got n number of mode shapes sitting as n number of columns. So here we have U1 U2, right? And eta 1 is what? It is a matrix of contribution coefficients like this, n1 n2. Okay, so in the similar fashion I can write down acceleration vector, which is this, in this way. Now this mode shape matrix will remain as is, because that is not dependent on time, so it will not be differentiated. It is a constant thing which is going to come out, and you are going to have time differentiation accommodated over here on this contribution coefficients. Okay, so this is the displacement vector, this is the acceleration vector, and now we invoke equation of motion that is there with us. Now let's assume that you have certain forcing acting onto the single degree of freedom system that we have considered. Okay, so let there be some force F1 over here, and let there be some force F2, which need not be synchronous, which need not be harmonic. Okay, you can think of any force. Okay, this is a very generalized method, so it is applicable to any kind of forcing. So if it is so, then in that generalized form I'll write down it in this way. Okay, x1 double dot x2 double dot plus here you have this K matrix, that is the stiffness matrix. Here it is this displacement vector, and on the right hand side you have forcing F1 F2. F1 F2, they are functions of time, and they can be any function of time as of now. Okay, so now in this equation, let me write down this as equation number 1. Now in this equation what I'm going to do is that I'm going to replace this acceleration vector by whatever that we have written over here. Okay, and this displacement vector will be replaced by this set of terms. Okay, so if we do that substitution, then what we get, I'll write down over here, that is m0 0 m, which is this mass matrix, times 1 1 1 minus 1 times eta 1 double dot eta 2 double dot plus this is 2k minus k 2k times eta 1 eta 2, that comes out to be equal to, oh I'm so sorry, there has to be that U matrix, which is 1 1 1 minus 1, then there will be eta 1 eta 2, and that thing has to be equal to F1 F2. Okay, So which is nothing but, okay, I'll write down it in this way. This is mass matrix. This is a matrix which is composed of U1, U2, okay, which is a U matrix, and here it is eta vector, eta double dot vector, plus again you have this K matrix and a matrix which have got U1, U2 as two columns, and to that you have eta vector multiplied by, and that is equal to F. Okay. Now what we are going to do is that here onwards we are going to invoke modal orthogonality that we already have discussed about. Okay, we have seen that U1 transpose M U2 comes out to be equal to 0. Similarly, U1 transpose K U2 also comes out to be equal to 0. You can exchange 1 and 2's location and still you get a similar kind of result. Okay, so in that regard, what we are going to do is that we are going to pre-multiply by this to this entire equation, by transpose of this matrix U matrix. Okay, what is this U matrix? U is the matrix which is composed of columns as mode, which has got columns as mode shapes. Okay, so we are going to take transpose of that and we are going to pre-multiply by that to this equation, entire equation on both sides. Okay, so if I do so, then what I get is, now see what I have is, I have transpose of this, so I have this thing, U1 transpose, U2 transpose M, and then you have this thing U1, U2, and here you have all etas, plus again you have U1 transpose, U2 transpose, and here you have K, and then you have U1, U2 and eta, and that comes out to be equal to this U1 transpose, U2 transpose times F. Okay, this particular matrix is actually identical to U in our case, because U is a symmetric matrix and hence its transpose is U itself. Okay, in this case. Okay, however, for any other case you need not always get it. Okay. So let me write down in whatever numbers that we have obtained. So it's like this. Oh, I'm so sorry. So 1 1 1 minus 1. Now this is the first mode shape and this is the second mode shape. Okay, you are now arranging mode shapes in this fashion. Okay, and then you have this mass matrix M0 0 M, and here you have 1 1 which is first mode shape, 1 minus 1 which is second mode shape, this is second mode shape, plus 1 1 1 minus 1 times 2k minus k minus k 2k, and here again you have 1 1. Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot writing acceleration vector here. Here you'll be writing that displacement vector, and this comes out to be equal to 1 1 1 minus 1 times f1 f2. Okay, now let's try to have a look at this. Okay, so what it comes out to be, this comes out to be equal to 2m 0 0 2m. Okay, which is nothing but u1 transpose m u1, here it is u1 transpose m u2, here it is u2 transpose m u2, and here it is u2 transpose m u2. Okay, so this particular thing is this one. Okay, so this one, you can expand it and you will end up over here, which has got these values. And we already have seen that because of modal orthogonality, this thing and this thing, which are actually off diagonal terms, they are equal to 0, whereas these diagonal terms, they are non-zero. Okay, and you will also be able to see that they are positive, okay, and non-zero, okay, which are coming out to be equal to 2m in this case. Okay, so it depends on what is the mode shape vector that you consider. You have considered 1 1. If you consider 2 2, then you are going to get something else sitting over here. Okay, now what to consider, I'll tell you very soon about that as well. Okay, as of now we are considering 1 1. So when we are considering 1 1, then we are getting 2m over here and 2m over here. Okay, now let's try to have a look at what comes over here. So this is this matrix, which is U transpose KU, that is equal to, again you will be writing it down. If you split it, then you can write it down in this fashion. It will be U1 transpose KU1. This will be U1 transpose KU2. This will be U2 transpose KU1. And this will be U2 transpose KU2. Again, modal orthogonality tells us that these off diagonal terms, they are 0, and only diagonal terms, they remain to be non-zero, and they will also be positive. Okay, and let's try to see what is it that we get over here in our case. Okay, in our case this comes out to be equal to 2k 0 0 6k. Okay, for the choice of u1 and u2 that we have made, this is what we get. Okay, and hence what is the final equation that we have obtained? Let's try to have a look at that equation, which is equal to 2m 0 0 2m times, this is eta 1 double dot, this is eta 2 double dot, plus this is equal to 2k 0 0 6k times eta 1 eta 2, that comes out to be equal to, now here you have, again in this side I'll be writing down this as f1 transpose, f1 tilde f2 tilde. Okay, where this f1 tilde f2 tilde, whatever this vector I have written, that is nothing but 1 1 1 minus 1 operated on f1 f2, which is equal to f1 plus f2 and f1 minus f2. Okay, so this is what is f1 tilde. Okay, and you have obtained this equation set, and now I want you to observe this equation set very carefully, and you'll be able to see that we have kind of got rid of off diagonal terms over here in mass matrix as well as in stiffness matrix, which essentially means that these two equations are no more coupled. We have decoupled whatever equation set we already had, that was coupled one, and now we have decoupled that equation set. Okay, and now we are landing into a stage where we are having two equations which are decoupled in nature, and they are again second order differential equations. Okay, now what two equations that we have? The first equation is 2m times n1 eta 1 or n1, whatever you call it, eta 1 double dot plus 2k times eta 1 equal to f1 tilde. This is first equation, and the other equation is 2m eta 2 double dot plus, this is 6k eta 2 equal to f2 tilde. Okay, so now you have obtained two equations which are entirely indifferent to each other. Okay, the first equation you can solve without giving any regard to second equation. Similarly, you can solve second equation without giving any regard to first equation. Okay, so you have obtained a set of equations which are decoupled from a set of equations which were coupled. Okay, when we were writing in terms of x1 and x2, at that time we obtained a set of equations which was that set was coupled in nature, and now when we are writing it down in terms of eta 1 and eta 2, then in that case you are getting decoupled equations. And what are eta 1 and eta 2? Eta 1 and eta 2 are nothing but contribution coefficients of mode number 1 and mode number 2. So what you have obtained by going to this from this route of modal superposition, you have decoupled equations. Okay, now it is equivalent to having two single degree of freedom systems which are behaving separately. So rather than solving a single 2 degree of freedom system, what you are going to do is you are going to solve two different single degree of freedom systems. Okay, that becomes always easier, right? So now your job is just to find out a response of that single degree of freedom system for whatever is this f. Okay, although as of now we already have seen only that kind of f which is harmonic, but you can actually find out response for any other kind of f. Okay, for single degree of freedom system. If time permits, we are going to see to that as well. Okay, but as of now let's try to stick to only harmonic forcing. But even if it is harmonic, and if f1 and f2 are harmonic of with different frequencies, still it would have been very difficult to solve it by using the method that was there earlier. However, with this method it becomes easier, right? And you can do it for any number of degrees of freedom system. So let's say if you have 10 a system which has got 10 degrees of freedom into it, then you would see that there will be such 10 different equations, each for contribution of each of the mode shape. Okay, so you will be obtaining initially 10 mode shapes. So once you obtain 10 mode shapes, then what you have to do is that you just have to transform whatever set of equations that you are having into a new coordinate system. Rather than being in that x1 x2, now you are into eigenspace. This is called as eigenspace. Okay, this eta 1 is telling you what is the contribution of mode number 1 u1. So it is telling you what is the contribution of the first eigenspace u1 in determining x1 and x2. So that in that sense what we say is that we are into eigenspace now. Okay, rather than being in Cartesian coordinates, you write down equation, you write down all these equations, you solve it in eigenspace, and then you take it back in your Cartesian coordinate system, or Cartesian or whatever coordinate system that you have considered. So that need not be Cartesian coordinate system, but it can be any other coordinate system that you have considered. So in that you can take it back. Okay, but as of now you are into eigenspace. Okay, now let's try to have a closer look at whatever equations that we have obtained, and let's try to understand that what these equations are giving us. The first equation is this one, right? Okay, and the second equation is 2m eta 2 double dot plus 6k eta 2 is equal to, this is f1 tilde and this is f2 tilde, right? Now whatever that we are getting over here is called as modal mass. Okay, a mass, equivalent mass corresponding to first mode shape, and this is modal stiffness. Okay, this thing is modal stiffness for the first mode shape. Similarly, this is modal mass for the second mode, and this is modal mass for the second mode shape. And how much modal mass you are going to get depends on what is a set of u1 and u2 that you have picked up. Okay, if you would have picked up a different set, then you would have obtained something else. So what we do is we generally pick that u1 and u2, okay, which give us unit modal mass. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be dividing by 1 over square root of 2m by this. You will be multiplying by 1 over square root of 2m, or you will be dividing by 1 over the square root of 2m to the first mode shape. Okay, if you take this as your first mode shape, and second mode shape will also be this one. If you take this as second mode shape, then you will be able to see that you will transform the same set into this one, eta 1 double dot. In that case it will be omega n1 square. This becomes 1. Okay, this becomes exactly equal to the first natural frequency, and here you get eta 1, and it will be f1 bar. Okay, and here again it will be 1 eta 2 double dot, and here you get omega n2 square eta 2 equal to f2 bar. Okay, so either you can write down it in this fashion or in this fashion. Okay, you can pick ideally any any kind of mode shape, but we typically go for such kind of mode shapes which give us unit modal mass. Okay, however, it is not necessary, you can pick anything. Okay, so when we are having such kind of mode shapes picked up, okay, these are called as mass normalized mode shapes. Okay, when you have picked up mass normalized mode shapes, then what you get is this one, and this will be into double dot plus omega into square. This is eta 1, this is eta 2, f2 caps. These are f2, this is bar, it's not cap tilde but it is bar. Okay, what is f1 bar, f2 bar? F1 bar, f2 bar will now be equal to 1 over square root 2m 1 1 1 minus 1 operated on f1 and f2. Okay, and now this f1 bar, you can think of this f1 bar as a force which acts on first eigenspace. This can be considered as a force which acts on second eigenspace, right? And now let's try to invoke our problem that we were considering. So we considered that f1 was equal to f0 and f2 was equal to 0, right? So if it is so, then what will be this f1 bar, f2 bar? That will be equal to 1 over square root of 2m 1 1 1 minus 1 operated on f0 0, okay, which comes out to be equal to 1 over square root of 2m. Okay, this is f0, this is f0, right? So which essentially means that force which acts on each of the eigenspace is identical, right? So we have now two equations. I'll write down those equations. n1 double dot plus omega n1 square, which is nothing but k by m, or I'll write down it as omega n1 square itself, omega n1 square eta 1 equal to 1 over square root of 2m times f0. Okay, this is equation number 1. And eta 2 double dot plus omega n2 square eta 2 equal to 1 over square root of 2m times f0, which is equation number 2. Okay, now consider that these are two different single degree of freedom systems. Solve these two single degree of freedom systems independently. Okay, and then we'll be superposing these mode shapes and getting the solution which is x1 and x2. Okay, now this is a non-homogeneous equation. Again, it will have complementary solution and a steady state part. This will also have complementary solution and steady state part. We are now going to look at only steady state part. Okay, so we also know that this f0 is nothing but f cosine if it is f cosine omega t, right? So first single degree of freedom system that we are going to solve is this one. Second is also identical with only omega into sitting over here, omega into square. Okay, so you already know solution of such kind of system. Okay, and that is equal to, so eta 1 steady state part, okay, that comes out to be equal to what is force amplitude, that is f0 divided by square root of 2m to that divided by k, which is equal to, in this case, what is stiffness, which that is equal to omega n1 square divided by under root 1 minus omega square by omega n square plus you have that 2 xi eta term sitting. We don't have xi, so we are considering only this part. So square root and this square will go, and this is what you are going to get, okay, which will be equal to f0 divided by square root of 2m into 1 over k by m, okay, multiplied by 1 over 1 minus omega square by omega n1 square, right? So that comes out to be equal to this is 0 by square root of 2m, and here you have m sitting over here, and then k, and then it is 1 over 1 minus omega square by omega n1 square, okay, which comes out to be equal to, now you will be left with f0 square root of m divided by k square root of 2 into 1 over 1 minus omega square by omega n1 square, okay. Similarly, you will be finding n2s, okay, or eta 2s, that is steady state part of eta 2, okay, which will again be here this stiffness k is actually omega n, no, this is k, this is, I'm so sorry, this is k, and in this case it will be equal to f0 divided by square root of 2m to 1 over omega n2 square divided by 1 minus omega square by omega n2 square, okay. Now omega n2 square you know is equal to 3k by m. So what you'll be doing is you'll be putting that value over here, then you get to see this, which will be equal to square root of m here and 3k here, and then you will be having this thing which is equal to 1 minus omega square by omega n2 square, okay. And hence your solution, which is steady state part of the solution, that comes out to be equal to superposition of this n1 times the superposition of two modes with these contribution coefficients, okay. Now I want you to complete this task. What you will be doing is you will be putting the value of n1 over here and putting 1 here, then you will be putting value of n2 here and 1 minus 1 over here, okay. And you will have to do certain simplifications onto it, and you will be able to find out that the final solution that you are going to get is going to be exactly identical to what we have obtained in the previous class, okay. That is nothing but it will be f0 divided by k times 2 minus omega square by omega n1 square divided by 1 minus omega square by omega n1 square, 1 minus omega, this is first term, okay, 1 minus omega square by omega n2 square it will be, and the second one comes out to be equal to f0 by k or f by k, whatever that we have written previously. Accordingly you will be writing down 2 minus, just check it out what comes out to be over here. I guess it comes out to be like this, 2 minus omega square divided by omega n1 square, which will be exactly identical to what we have obtained, and this term is going to be same, only the second term is going to be different, okay. This will be equal to omega n2 square by omega n1 square minus omega square by omega n2 square, n1 square it will be, and this is omega into. Okay, so this is how it is going to come. You just try and check it out whether it comes out to be the identical one. Okay, so this is the task that is left at your end. You will be doing it. Otherwise I would have done it, but it would have been really boring to carry out all those algebraic manipulations. You can do it at your end and check it out if it comes out to be that way. Okay, so we'll be stopping over here for today, and in this class we have seen modal superposition method, and we have obtained a solution of same problem that we already have obtained a solution for using modal superposition. Okay, so you can either go for the method that I told you in the previous class, which was a straight away extension of single degree of freedom system, or you can think of going to a modal superposition method that I just now have talked about. Okay, and as I told you, this modal superposition method is valid for any kind of forcing, and also it can be used for any number of degrees of freedom system. Okay, so we'll be stopping over here. Thank you.